What is one consistent factor to AAA games? It's the very reason why indie games stand out. Graphics. For decades, the AAA industry has been obsessed with higher resolution graphics. Meanwhile, the indie space has, for the most part, gone the polar opposite direction. While the AAA industry churns out the most realistic looking humans in existence, indie games have become weirdly nostalgic. Whenever a AAA studio remakes, remasters, or updates a game from their old IP, the graphics always get updated to fit modern technology. Dithercore. It's a wave of influence that has been very apparent to many indie artists, both game makers and animators, a movement that explains why some original indie games feel nostalgic. Pixel count. The mere concept of this harkens us to a simpler time, a time where the AAA industry felt like an indie space. This artistic movement isn't just about using fewer pixels. It's a vibe, a social construct of small unknown artists, some of whom I've seen gain success over the years. Whether intention, hardware and software limitations, or aesthetic play into it, ultimately, it does not matter. What does matter are the humans who made it. It's ironic how the gaming industry, the less humans that make something, the more credit and praise is shown to them. Team Cherry just proved that with their $20 game, especially in an ecosystem where AAA games are now $80 for the standard edition alone. When I think of AAA games, I immediately think of poor employment environments, microtransactions, and downfalls of IPs over the years who honestly just need to experiment more, rather than make a 20-second Call of Duty. When I think of indie games, art is always the focus. Not the pixel quality or performance of that art, but rather how it looks, how it feels. The indie scene does not shy away from experimentation, and that's one reason why I love it so much. You always find something new, something fresh that you have never seen before. Places like Itch remind me of the Wild West days of indie Steam games, and I've covered a lot of those games on this channel. Indie games convinced me that video games are an art form. They should not be used for corporate satisfaction, but rather they belong in an art gallery. However, they are, most of the time, not treated as such, especially when the focus becomes statistics rather than how it speaks to your soul. Dithercore, as a concept, takes its inspiration from the early years of video games. The most popular aesthetic I've seen is somewhere between the years of the PS1 and the PS2. There was such a jump in technology between those two consoles, and it's during that time where I believe the Dithercore movement started. Pre-research is the act of searching, consuming, discovering. It's the main reason why I claim that the Studio C video took me 10 years. Not because I was actively creating the video for that long, but because I was experiencing that art form for a decade. It took me that long to watch all 20 seasons. What do you mean season 21 is releasing this year? I say all this to make the point that all these artists could very well have played these games or similar games in their childhood, and now the art they make reflects that. At the very least, aesthetically, low poly count is very common in the PS1, PS2 era. Maybe they have never played a PlayStation or video game in the early 2000s, and maybe it's just easier to animate in lower poly counts. I'm not an animator, so I genuinely don't know. But I know some people who are. Have you ever heard of the Dithercore movement before?
Not particularly, not this particular title. I do know that dithering is a very popular aesthetic choice for stuff like what I make, or a game that comes to mind is Eclipsium. That game uses dithering, or something that looks a lot like dithering across its whole art style. Dithering isn't something that I actually use for the most part. You'll see it in my YouTube channel branding, like in the banner, but other than that, not really. However, I'm not surprised that people are in this era of PS1, PS2, low poly graphics, like art style, like the resurgence of that art style. I'm not surprised that people are using that effect heavily right now, because it does look amazing on low poly stuff like what I make in Eclipsium,
I've not really heard of the Dithercore movement before, but I've seen a lot of people who dither their work for aesthetic appeal, and me too. I do that as well.
What are some of the earliest video games you've remembered playing before?
I guess it's no surprise one of my earliest gaming experiences is the PS1 Crash Bandicoot 2 specifically. That game is incredible. That is the best of low poly graphics, honestly. If we're talking about like quality and just like how it looks, just the original Crash Bandicoot trilogy just looks amazing, even to this day. Like they remastered the games, but it just doesn't. It's not the same thing. It is so not the same thing. Other than that, it was a lot of other older PS2 games, like Midnight Club. I remember that one quite a bit. Yeah, those classic PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 games, man, that is a huge inspiration for me.
I remember playing the Disney tie-in games when I was a kid, like Wall-E and Ratatouille, to name a few. But I mostly grew up on the Wii, so I remember playing like those movie tie-ins or the new Mario age games like Mario Kart Wii or New Super Mario Brothers Wii.
What drew you to your own specific art style?
It's weird. I don't really know where it all comes from. I guess it's just like a million other just different little things that kind of culminated into what I do now. I could not pinpoint a specific time and place where I was like, wow, that looks really good and I should do that. It was kind of just like, I wanted to move from 2D to 3D, and just how that happened was I looked at Paint 3D in Windows and I was like, hey, it's 3D software. Let's see what I can do with that. And it sort of just snowballed there. Eventually I downloaded Blender and here we are now. Honestly, the genesis of my whole low poly aesthetic was just seeing so many other people do it. I know I just said I couldn't really pinpoint one thing, but if it's right now, it's yeah, I saw a bunch of people doing PS1, PS2 style graphics, and I was like, hey, that's kind of cool, maybe I'll take a crack at that. And then I just slowly started injecting my own artistic kind of values into it, and eventually made up something that I feel like is pretty unique to me. I would not call it original, but I feel like you could look at a Skullmug video and be like, hey, yeah, that's a Skullmug video. It's gotten to the point where I've seen people make their own simulator videos in the style that I'm doing it, so maybe that's a sign that what I am doing is unique and original. I don't know. My
art style is a mesh of a ton of stuff I take inspiration from. I love puppets a whole lot, and I even have one of my main guy. So his big eyes and the black mouth are inspired by Cookie Monster, and his handle eyebrow is inspired by how Donkey Kong does it. Well, I've seen a lot of people point out how my style is connected to Rareware, and that makes sense because I grew up playing Donkey Kong Returns and Banjo-Kazooie on the Xbox. Yeah, I think I just found the low poly nature of those games to be super charming. The painterly color work and the dithering were sort of an afterthought at first, but I just fell in love with them as I kept using it. I remember playing the Disney tie-in games when I was a kid, like Wall-E and Ratatouille, to name a few. But I mostly grew up on the Wii, so I remember playing those movie tie-ins or the new Mario age games like Mario Kart Wii or New Super Mario Brothers Wii.
Are low poly animations easier to work with than something that has more polygons?
Not necessarily if we're talking about ease of animation, because you can animate anything and it'll look just fine if you know what you're doing. Not saying that I'm the most talented or experienced 3D animator, but poly count never really affects much of anything, because I've used high poly stuff and I've used low poly stuff in all of my videos. It just kind of matters what it looks like in the edit, the final edit. I'll get a pretty high poly model off of Sketchfab or wherever, and I'll put it into my scene, and it'll just kind of be in the background, or it will be sort of at the forefront, but it all kind of looks the same to my eye anyway. Now, if we're talking about your PC's ability to handle high poly models, then yeah, it's going to be a bit of a problem, but other than that, not really.
Low poly animations are technically easier due to performance stuff with computers, but that aside is I don't really find much of a difference in animating high poly or low poly characters. It's more of just I guess how I animate. But the difference comes in how they're made or how they're rigged, because low poly models you can kind of get away with different sort of rigging because those artifacts are what people sort of want to see in the aesthetics of low poly animation. When it comes to stepped animation, which is what I do with my trash can guy, I find that to be much more difficult because I'm very meticulous with how I animate every frame.
Who are some artists that you would consider to be in the low poly / dithercore community?
I guess earlier I mentioned Eclipsium, that game. Those guys are making totally cool looking low poly stuff. There's CamTheCan.
Some artists who also work in the low poly or dithercore are my friends Migrod, Framed 51 and Isometric Pixel, along with some other artists like Violet or Viol XIV, Joel G with Ina, and Hulapy, who made like Gwimbly on Smiling Friends, and a bunch of other cool stuff, just to, to name a few people.
Playzone95, he actually uses dithering quite a bit in his artwork. Egg Sailor, Freakbait is another one. There's another video game called World of Dogs, very low poly art style. There's just so many to go over. You can really get sucked into a rabbit hole on Instagram specifically. Like, I've just found so many amazing creators with this art style. Everybody's got their own unique spin on it, which is cool, because even though it's generally the same aesthetic, you get everybody's different flavor, and I've come to really appreciate that.
A year ago, I discovered one of the most terrifying demos I've ever played. It's called Eclipsium, and now the full game is out. Not only did the brief introduction to this world intrigue me, but it actually scared me, and I wanted more. All the best games I've ever played have been walking simulators, The Beginner's Guide, Stanley Parable, and Wanderstop. Although they can get existential, they are, for lack of a better term, cozier, light-hearted games. Eclipsium? Well, it immediately juxtaposes itself with these games for its Dithercore art style and cosmic horror. My experience with the demo was shocking. At first, I was enjoying the art of this walking simulator, but then I got to the water, and something wasn't right. There's a lot this game just doesn't tell you, which is fun. Oh gosh. What the? Whoa.
Were you losing your sanity?
What was that? That was scary. What was that? It was like my flight or fight response, but in audio form. What? I hated that.
I don't like that sound.
What was that?
Later fight.
That. Oh, I don't like that. Oh,
Freaking Zelda left.
Okay. We're gonna do this. I hate you, game.
It's a Mori.
This is literally the epitome of I hate this. Don't it's giving me so much anxiety right now. I hate game. I hate you. No.
It's a Mori.
Oh gosh.
It's a Mori, but if it was more pixelated.
That gave me so much anxiety. Oh my gosh.
Oh my god, this is Half-Life.
That was the worst part of the game. I absolutely hated that.
Imagine if you played like Half-Life on the indie game stream.
Yeah, this blood, totally fine. I'm fine with that. These possibly dead bodies, yeah, totally fine. But whatever that sound was, just like literally triggered me. Like I can't explain what just happened, but I hated every second of it. That terrified me, like to my core, in a way that I can't explain. Don't make me go back to the water.
Back to the water we go.
Game, no.
Back to the water we go.
Game.
Back to the water we go.
Oh, thank God I don't have to go back in the water. Okay, good. I was about to. I probably have to go back in the water. No.
Back to the water you go.
I have to keep
back
doing
to the
this.
water
No.
you go.
No.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I can't with this game. I can't with this game. No.
Back to the water you go.
Back to the water you go. Back
I'm going to cry. I am
back to the water.
I'm going to cry. I can't. I can't.
Back to the water you go.
This is the
Back to the water you go.
I hate you. Shut up.
What is that?
R.
Oh, it's a door.
This is what gives you a panic attack.
I hate that. I hate everything about that. So when you're okay, I'm just gonna say this now because this is what I'm feeling when I hear that sound. So you know when you're in like deep water and you can't see like what's below you? I'm always fearing that something's gonna get me, and that sound is like my brain saying something's gonna get you if you don't get out of this water right now. It's like, oh.
What, you didn't see the sharks in there?
I hate you. Just don't even.
You're a jackass.
It's not even. Oh, it's just that sound is the epitome of my brain going, get out of the water now. Something's gonna get you. And I just
I'm gonna get you there.
The game was able to perfectly replicate it. That's the genius of this design.
Incredible sound design, because when I first heard it, it almost gave me a panic attack. Like, oh, it scared me so bad. And even now, like, I don't want to go back to the water, because that's how like just afraid I am of something's gonna get me because I'm in water. It's so bad. So I'm gonna try to avoid the water, and we'll be fine. But then, of course, there's always one gap that's like, hey, you're not gonna make it. You're gonna fall in the water. Like, right there. Oh,
Like an
I
rabbit,
hate.
doesn't it?
It's. If anxiety had a sound, that would be it. And I don't know how the developers did that, and I don't understand.
Just don't fuck up your jump.
But there's no sprint. I literally like. I went the wrong way, didn't I? I went the wrong way. Where am I supposed to go?
Mr. Skullmug, are you scared of a bit of
tornado warning is
water?
terrifying as that.
Yeah, that's kind of the epitome of what it sounds like. Kind of sounds like a tornado warning, but like worse, because it's like it's whirring.
I get it now. That was the worst one.
Yeah, you okay there?
No, I'm not okay.
I understand.
I'm not okay.
That was the worst one.
It's terrible because you don't see anything. You only hear a loud noise, which makes it way worse because you can't see the thing, if there even is a thing. Like, what?
Maybe there's just nothing in there. After all this time, there's just
Probably
nothing
isn't,
in there.
but like, I don't.
Maybe it's just you're afraid of water.
I'm this close to pressing like Alt F4. I hate this, but I love it, but I hate it. Oh my gosh, this is. Oh my gosh. Oh, okay, we're fine. I can push through, we're fine. In the promotional material for this demo on Steam, all it showed was a tower. In the full game, we finally get to see a face. Who is this person? The categories of this game are walking simulator, surreal, and psychological horror. I am literally the perfect target demographic for this game. If you're wondering why it's been 7 months since the last indie game review, I've been waiting for something to pique my interest, and since this was my favorite demo I played last year, I instantly bought the game as soon as I discovered that it was out. We start the full game with a brand new main menu. A beautifully haunting dithered cutscene then plays. Then it crashed. Once it loaded, we wake up in an operating room. The cabinets are filled with bottles, one of the drawers has scissors, and this first room tells us very few important details. We can search into certain containers, items can be picked up, exploration is encouraged. A surgery did in fact happen here. The game wants us to find exit signs. Something otherworldly is haunting this establishment. How do we open this door? That's right, we cut out our tongue. This game takes the approach of the silent protagonist in such a literal way that it's actually kind of genius. He didn't talk at all in the demo, and now we know why. The fact that it is a scale that shows your character weighing his actions and turning them into consequences is incredible. In the first room alone, I'm already impressed, and it's only been 5 minutes. Out of the operating room are various hallways. The sun is shining. The birds are singing. There seems to be at least one interactable object in every room, especially because I knew after seeing this toy it was definitely achievement bait, but I did it anyway. The radio and the fan are also interactable. The hospital is slowly more overgrown the deeper you traverse, until it swallows you whole. Now you've entered a world from which you cannot return. No matter how much you try, you cannot backtrack, since the door that was connected to the room has just become a door in the middle of the forest. There are 2 wooden cabins, but no doors on them. The third one has a doorway, and as soon as we find it, a shot rings out. Nothing can be found in this cabin. It's empty and run down. A lantern illuminates the forest, revealing a fork in the road. Turn right and the gunshots get louder. A shrine of a woman rests. A campfire blazes. You must not be alone. If you go left, you cross a bridge, but ultimately it leads you to the stairs in the woods. As the sky swirls black with red hues, the uneasiness increases as the music swells. There it is. The tower. A humongous wooden staircase reaches to the heavens as we carefully traverse it, but we miss the jump. This was our first death, and just like in the demo, we wake up in a previous room which once we leave, it closes behind us, a fact that I was also initially impressed with.
Guys, if you're gonna say like, something phobia, at least use the. How did you bring the candle back?
I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. Nobody really knows. If you don't know what the phobia is, you're going to say it's a something phobia.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, so if you die, you spawn and you go out, and you go to the last checkpoint, and then the bedroom disappears. That reminds me of another game that did exactly that.
Yeah, Heartbound.
Except this time, instead of a forest, it's a mine shaft. The thing that I love about walking simulators, especially this one, is that you typically don't need to sprint. And since you cannot sprint in this game, you are forced to slow down and take your time, which helps you further appreciate the atmosphere of the game. Since this is the first parkour section of the game, you will die several times. Holding a lever moves a contraption to progress your movement even further, and a second cutscene plays as we reach a giant tree in the center of this crevice. Our hand is now a cutting device. In the demo, we got an axe, but here, we become an axe. Well, actually, it looks more like a chainsaw, man. Wait a minute. Call me cheesy, cause I just found a boundary break. I feel like any Austin right now. The tree is actually hollow with branches aligning the floor. Most people would complain about this as a glitch, but in a surreal world like this, who is to say that this is not intentional? It's like being in an abandoned building that you know you are not allowed to be in, a feeling I will never get because I'm not adventurous enough as a human being. So the question is, what do we use our axe hand for now? Well, after I'm pretty sure I accidentally glitched the game, I reloaded it, which brought me back to the previous checkpoint. I should have just cut down the tree the first time. We now have access to our axe whenever we need it, and in order to access this menu, I realized that the UI of this menu's creativity is just so cool. Destructible physics? Oh yeah, this game has that too. I swear, literally everything about this game just speaks to me. The fog blankets the mind as we find ourselves in the middle of the chaos. I was really hoping we could ride in this minecart, but instead, we just take the mine tracks on foot. The tunnel reminds me of what we saw in the demo, unlike these fleshy tentacles that we attack to progress. Deeper than the mine, broken fences akin to shattered teeth protrude from the ground, as if we are being eaten alive, which connects to the very start of the game where we cut out our tongue, so the symbolism is very noticeable, especially with the fleshy colored rocks. Anyway, I think the game just pranked me. The waiting room changes depending on where you are, and although this game favors exploration, you will run into the occasional invisible wall. After this, we finally find the elevator and go up. I mean down. There's a lot of mouth imagery in this game. The color palette flips. Instead of a hot red, we get a cold blue environment, which then transitions to a yellow. Another fork. Left, dead end. Right, red lever. A spotlight scares the fleshy tongues, and now my mouth analogy makes more sense in this flesh puzzle where light scares the darkness. We stumble upon an ancient ruin as screaming fills the foggy void below us. The ruins feel medieval. Another piece of yourself is torn out. This time, a heart. The ritual makes the shrine look very similar to the tower. A hole in our hand lets us see invisible paths. The deeper you go, the more disfigured we become, as if sheer power destroys us. We find ourselves in a forest. Well, a forest of some kind, as we follow a floating entity, a light in the darkness. I audibly gasped as I saw the anglerfish. Sometimes the light in the darkness isn't always what we believe. Now this feels like a forest. We find a little village. It's comprised of various shacks, one of which has a basement with 3 keyholes. The first key is in the lake, as it rains blood and fish. The second is in the fire pit, and the third is in a dead cow. The second key was the hardest because I found multiple bucket-like objects, and it took me a long time to find the bucket. It is so mesmerizing to walk through this tunnel. She stares at you and you can't help but look. It's one of the most unsettling scenes I've ever experienced in a video game. You don't belong here. You are an intruder. You can't look away no matter how hard you try. You are forced to stare into the eyes of something you do not understand. I held my breath as if the sheer breath in my lungs is even slightly offensive to this creature. I feel judged. I have to get close to pass. And I feel every fiber of my being expecting something, anything to happen. No words are said, only eyes meet between myself and this creature. You are confronted with the undeniable. You are finally confronted with the cosmic horror. The cursor of this game in the main menu is an eye. This whole section is just... it's very, very unsettling. After you enter the eye, you're back in the waiting room, and then the surgery room. A giant key lays on the bed. You pass the town, the key is an eye, you ring the bell, cultists chant, fire burns into a cutscene. You can now set your hand on fire. Pigs fly across the sky in orderly fashion as an assembly line heads towards a factory. This industry is overwhelming, a marriage of steam, rust, and darkness. Bodies of pigs hang everywhere. You approach the gate. As you enter, you set light to some candles. As loud gears turn. After you hitch a ride, you get a closer look at this metal behemoth. Growling is faintly heard in the distance as pigs are hollowed out and your claustrophobia settles in. Screaming loudens. Through the fire and flames, you see the tower in the distance as you fall into the belly of the beast. This entire time, the game has given subtle hints to the organs of the body, the symbolism of eyes giving your body parts away, the fleshy-looking tunnels and walls. It leads you here. Speaking of the symbolism regarding the eyes, then walk towards the blinding light. Outside, you head back to town as seagulls squawk. With the factory now in flames, you find a tower and use that sphere you acquired. Water dries up. A corpse is found at the bottom. In this whale is a boat, a very long hallway that doesn't end. You turn around and end up at the beginning. The other way seems correct. The main control room has a button to push, and a grate unlatches as you crawl. In order to move forward, you need a code. The hallways still seem to loop as if your choice is incorrect. It feels overwhelming, as if this very game is mocking you. But then, you remember a tool. You and a being work together to open a container. A red room of soldier corpses appear. As you open a jar, smoke fills the room. It's now upside down, but something is moving this boat. You are back in the world. You find a boat and head towards the tower. Unable to look away, the tower becomes a monster. The heart of the monster comes from yourself, and the whole world turned upside down, which mirrors the demo. A red door lies within the beast, but vine-like roots are blocking it. Naturally, you chop down the roots, and using all three of your abilities, you unlock the door. Back in the waiting room, the fog has taken residency with this hospital. Chains stuck in a spike echo through the building. Walls fall down. A maze of beds surrounds you as you find another spike. Existence crumbles around you. A third spike, a fourth, fifth. Each time the dimension changes. Sixth. She is back, arm outstretched. She takes you to a giant key. Now we are moving that giant key. Finding a weak spot in the giant chain, the entity reveals a ball. Fair warning, if you suffer from epileptic seizures, maybe skip this part because it heavily reminds me of the Doctor Strange movie. Another dimension, but mirrored. It moves depending on your perspective. A very unique puzzle. A cathedral drops down into the hospital. A red door breaks down and a line of pigs enter. From seemingly every direction, they break through. Back in the cathedral, the pigs start standing. They then sacrifice themselves to create a bridge for you. A serpent rises from the ground and hits you. It is now blocking our path. Unless, not only was I right about this game a year ago, but the fact that this game implements liminal spaces, horror, surrealism, and now non-Euclidean geometry in the form of paintings, incredible. This deer reminds me of the dead animal in the barn, and now there is blood on your hands. Even though there are multiple sinks, you cannot wash your hands, symbolizing trauma. But not just that. You actually use the blood, the pain, to create art. This is beautiful symbolism. After painting a cat, we see another painting, the beach. Chopping wood leads us back to the cabin where we light the fireplace. Where the deer's body used to be stands another deer with a broken sword. If we take a painting into another one, it changes, using the fire to melt the snow, and using the snow to freeze the lake. We've completed the sword. Take out 2 of our ribs and climb. The heart beats. Days went by faster and faster. Her embrace is welcome. heartbeat we've heard the entire time was actually a clock getting stuck in a second of time. Pigs, cats, a snake, a bird, and a deer were imagery throughout this game. The deeper you go, the more you give up yourself. Meanwhile, cults are present, and this entity was actually a loved one the whole time. Was this a delirious dream from the drugs of surgery? The surrealistic nature of the game fuels this idea of exploration, discovery, and horror. How much is literal and how much is symbolism? The literal part that the game kept dragging us back to was the hospital room. The symbolic part was everything else. Is it the personification of our spiraling thoughts as we feel helpless? Were the pigs symbolizing the working class where corporations work them to death in order to meet a quota, aka to feed the factory? The pigs can also walk, which makes me think that they are a stand-in for humans, literally. Maybe the pigs are just pigs and it's a commentary on how we treat animals as both a pet and a resource. And if an animal dies but no resources are taken from it, does it still have value? Since there are many animals both alive and dead. The pigs make a bridge to help us, which shows how when a collective group works together, they are stronger together, even if it kills them. The pigs get hollowed out of their organs. Meanwhile, you sacrifice your own organs as well for a greater cause. The snake could represent an Ouroboros, an infinite loop of time where the snake keeps eating you, where you are the tail, the inevitable end to this madness, until you find a sword, which leads you to breaking the cycle. Maybe the whole journey is a light at the end of the tunnel when you die, how your life flashes before your eyes. Except this game does it very, very slowly. Eyes are prevalent throughout the entire story. They are a constant symbol. You even give up your eye to gain an upgrade. Maybe it's symbolic of going through a literal hell for someone to be strong even in the toughest of times. The entity was initially perceived as scary, but the more we understand her, the more we see her as a human instead of a monster. This personifies the guilt of the hospitalized person because, well, what if he doesn't get better? What if he dies on her? What will she do? It's unclear whether or not her is this woman here during wartime. Maybe it's either her or the Wanderer's mother, because either way, we use that trauma as a weapon, taking what we learned from our circumstances and applying them for current use. It seems more like a flashback than a direct cut to reality, especially because the fallout of this bomb isn't present past this point and doesn't appear symbolically as far as I can tell. His heart creates the tower. The tower has a beating heart that looks like an eye, which makes sense since the main protagonist gives up both his heart and eye. His heart manifests a monster. The heart represents time, grief, and sickness, giving your heart to someone else. Eyes represent sight, perspective. The last time I was really sick, I remember having really vivid dreams, being able to recall more of my dreams than I could normally, and I would dream when I feel like I wasn't fully asleep because I was so out of it. This is kind of what this game is like. The reality is the hospital. In order to enter the surreal world, we must first give up our tongue, our speech, our communication to the real world. This makes me think that in order to enter this specific world, something drastic must happen, as if this patient is having a literal fever dream. Even though she seemed distant most of the time, in reality, she did show up at the hospital. It just took longer regarding our perspective than her perspective, which would make sense why eyes appear so much in the world as you travel. To the main protagonist, they felt stuck in time. In reality, they were probably just dreaming. If we go to the Steam page, something I don't like to fully read until after I finish the game, longing for light. A sunless world begins devouring itself. Every step shifts the landscape beneath you as you search for what remains of her. The game is set in darkness most of the time, and even when you find what appears to be a sun, the darkness still resides. Devouring itself could mean that not only is the world degrading with time, but so is our protagonist, since you give up more body parts the longer you play. This would make sense why the character decomposes the longer they are on this journey. You look for her, but what you find isn't her, but rather a distorted, skewed version of her in your dreamlike state. Eclipsium is a first-person horror game where you play as the desperate wanderer. In search of her, his path leads through hellish tombs, cathedrals of flesh, and even through space, immolating himself and sacrificing anything to achieve his goal. The Wanderer is more of a title rather than a name, since I believe you are playing as a silent protagonist not only to further the story, but to literally put yourself in the shoes of this character to relate to them. He cut off communication to enter the world. The Wanderer is a title, not a name. It is an action, a representation of how your mind can wander, especially in a fever dream. He is literally me. Usually in these cutscenes, it intersects with reality as if what is happening in the surreal world isn't entirely fiction to the Wanderer. The hellish imagery I mentioned is confirmed, flesh is confirmed, and space is confirmed, even though I specifically said liminal space. To immolate means to kill or offer as a sacrifice, especially by burning. He was offering himself as a sacrifice in the end to save her, which makes sense why he is constantly giving up body parts the entire time. The literal and metaphorical are more tied together than I initially realized. In one cutscene, a war happens after a bomb goes off, reminding me of the phrase, "All is fair in love and war." Eclipsium isn't just a horror story. It's actually a love story. The Wanderer sacrifices himself for her. Let's go back to the demo now that we understand the full scope of the story. In retrospect, the demo is completely different to the full game, as if the demo is a fever dream of its own. The sad fact of the matter with this demo is that it's gone from Steam. You can no longer play it and get that initial experience that I got while playing it. Typically, a demo will be a section of the game, but with Eclipsium, that is not the case. In a way, this should incentivize more people to try free demos to indie games when available, because it won't always be around. If you still want access to the demo, you're going to have to go on itch.io, crimson skies above. A silhouette etched ardent, beckons to the keep. A trippy and retro-inspired horror game that will take you on a journey through surreal lands, delving deeper and deeper into the unorthodox. Lose track of your sense of space and time in this immersive and non-Euclidean experience as you make your way towards the tower. However, getting there is only the beginning. All this does is confirm, once again, that I was right to call this game a non-Euclidean experience right from the start. I want to bring up the demo, especially after playing the full game, because there are a lot of scenes in this demo that don't appear in the full game. The scene that hooked me isn't even in the full game, which, while a bit of a disappointment, I had a similar, if not better, reaction to seeing her for the first time, so it's nice to know that both games have extremely unsettling moments. There are several devlogs on the demo page. The game was created by 4 people, Twash, Prolix, Synthesizer, and Satan. Last week, Eclipsium graduated. Well, all developers working on the game did. Eclipsium originally started off as a student project, which we then decided to keep working on during our studies. Having now graduated, we're happy to say that the entire team is committed to continue development full-time. Wait a minute, there's 5 people here. So I checked my video I made about playing the game a year ago, and wait a minute, one of the developers knows I exist, and I didn't realize it was even one of the developers at the time? Well, oops. Please, even if you can't afford the game, play the free demo on itch. If you've already played the full game and haven't played the demo, you need to, because it's a completely different experience. I'm not even being hyperbolic or overdramatic, all the scenes are completely new, as if this was more so a tech demo or a concept they were trying to flesh out for the game. In a way, it's almost a prequel, something that adds to the world rather than a rerun. The Eclipsium demo is by far my favorite demo to a game I've ever played. I'm honestly blown away. The unsettling nature of the cosmic horror, the symbolism of the items, the unique demo, and the Dithercore art style, it all ties together to create something beautifully haunting. I've been waiting for years for a good walking simulator, and this does not disappoint. This is my new favorite game. Ever since I finished the game, I haven't been able to stop thinking about it, especially because the longer I sit with the story, the more I learn about it. The more I think about this game, the deeper I appreciate it. The core message that I got from Eclipsium is sacrifice, not in a culty way, but rather a selfless way, in the name of love. After all, there is no greater love than to lay down one's life for his friends.
I guess that's it. All right, cool. Thanks for having me on, dude.
And yeah, I think I just found the low poly nature of those games to be like super charming. The painterly color work and the dithering were sort of an afterthought at first, but I just fell in love with them as I kept using it.